Alkalizing the body is a term that gets thrown around a lot in health circles, but what does it actually mean? Some people say it's a game changer that fixes their health problems, but others say it's a scam because the blood regulates itself. In this video, I will walk you through the whole topic and share my complete protocol for alkaline acid balance. You will learn what works, what doesn't, and how to approach this topic in a structured and proven way. This video will be divided into 3 parts. First, we will talk about the most common beginner mistakes. Then we will talk about how to set up the right diet. And lastly, we will talk about supplements that help support your diet. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start by clearing up a few myths and beginner mistakes that people make when it comes to alkalizing the body. Many of these mistakes happen because people misunderstand the concept or take it too far. Here's a list of the mistakes that I will walk you through, and like I just said, later on in the video, you will then learn how to actually implement a good alkaline diet and supplement protocol. Mistake number 1 will be thinking it's a scam because blood pH doesn't change. Then we will talk about wanting to alkalize all areas of your body, which is also a common mistake. Then why dropping meat and animal proteins completely is not a good idea either. Same with obsessing over bicarbonate and drinking things like baking soda water. And lastly, focusing only on alkalizing and nothing else. Great, let's start with the first mistake. So thinking alkaline diets are a scam because blood pH doesn't change. A lot of people think the idea of alkalizing the body is complete nonsense. And honestly, I get it. There's definitely a lot of bad advice floating around. But the misunderstanding usually comes down to what people think it means. Here's the deal. Your blood pH is tightly regulated between 7.35 and 7.45. It doesn't change much unless you're very sick. So yeah, if you're trying to change your blood pH with food, that's not going to happen. So that's where most skeptics stop and say the whole thing is fake. But that's not the point. What we're really talking about when we say alkalize the body is reducing acid load in your tissues and supporting your alkaline reserves. These reserves are mostly minerals like magnesium, potassium, calcium, and sodium. Your body uses them to buffer acids and to maintain a healthy balance in tissues and organs, not just the blood. And if you're constantly dealing with a high acid load, for example from stress, a poor diet, or nutrient deficiencies, then your body has to borrow these buffering minerals from your bones, muscles, and connective tissue to keep the blood pH stable. Over time, that will then create imbalances and contribute to things like fatigue, mineral loss, and even chronic inflammation. So in that sense, alkalizing the body is about replenishing your alkaline mineral reserves, not changing your blood pH. This brings me to mistake number 2, which is wanting to alkalize all areas of your body. Here's something most people don't realize. Acid-alkaline imbalance can go both ways. Some areas of your body should be acidic, like your stomach. You want strong stomach acid to break down proteins, absorb nutrients, and kill pathogens. But because of stress, nutrient deficiencies, or maybe even certain medications, a lot of people actually have low stomach acid, which makes that area too alkaline. Meanwhile, many tissues that should be alkaline, like your muscles, bones, and connective tissue, often get too acidic. So the answer is not to make all areas of your body more alkaline, but to reestablish a healthy balance and help your body support itself. Another very common mistake that I see people making is dropping meat and animal proteins completely. People usually do this when they realize that meat and animal proteins are acid forming due to the sulfur and phosphorus in them. The problem is that these compounds are needed for healthy liver function, tissue growth, and other important functions in the body. Basically, what you're doing if you're dropping all meat is that you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You're fixing one problem but creating another by restricting the nutrients your other metabolic functions need. So instead, be smart about your protein intake and know that if you eat more animal proteins, you will need more buffering minerals to balance everything out. We will talk about this in more detail later in the video. Mistake number 4 is obsessing over carbonate, for example, by drinking alkaline water or baking soda. A lot of people think that drinking this kind of water is a smart way to alkalize the body. But here's the issue. When you drink it regularly, especially around meals, you're not just alkalizing, you're also messing with your stomach acid. I already talked about how the stomach needs a more acidic environment to function properly. If you water down that acid with alkaline drinks all the time, you are throwing off that balance and will make things worse, not better. I know it sounds like a simple fix, and it is often recommended online, but just increasing your bicarbonate is not the way to alkalize your body. And the last mistake I want to talk about is focusing only on this topic, so focusing only on alkalization. I already touched on this, but please don't make alkalizing your only health goal. Many people think that if they just hit the right pH number, everything else will magically fall into place. But health doesn't work like that. Your body is way more complex, and trying to build your entire approach around pH levels is a recipe for imbalance somewhere else. If you're obsessed with making every food alkaline, you will often end up cutting out entire food groups, like we just said, meat, animal proteins, and others. All of these are crucial for liver function, bile production, and methylation. For example, the sulfur in these foods is crucial, and if you take that away, you will be hurting your elimination pathways just to get a better pH reading. That's really not a good trade-off. Same with energy metabolism. You need B vitamins, amino acids, healthy fats, and trace minerals. All of these might come from foods that aren't perfectly alkaline on paper. If your only lens is this food alkaline or not, you will be missing out on nutrients that are essential for all of these functions. So again, energy, focus, hormone balance, and resilience. This then brings me to how to set up the right alkaline diet without compromising all of these things. That's what we will talk about now in the second part of the video. The first thing you need to understand is what makes food acidic or alkaline. This is not done by the food itself, but by the nutrients in it. On the one hand, we have nutrients that tend to leave an acidic residue or increase the body's acid load after the food metabolism. The two most important here are phosphorus and sulfur. Phosphorus is found in meat, dairy, and things like processed foods and soft drinks. Sulfur is found in animal proteins and also some legumes and nuts, often in the form of sulfur-containing amino acids like methionine, cysteine, and taurine. Besides these, you also have other compounds in food that will add to your acid load. These include certain organic acids like lactic acid, oxalic acid, which is found in beets and spinach, as well as things that are metabolized into acidic byproducts like nitrogen or creatine. On the other hand, we have nutrients that tend to be alkaline and can balance the acidic nutrients. The key group here are alkaline reserve minerals, and we mentioned them earlier already. They include magnesium, calcium, potassium, and sodium, and a few others, but these four really are the key nutrients. They are the body's primary tool to neutralize acids. The problem is that most people are deficient in at least one of them. Why? Because modern diets are loaded with processed foods and low in vegetables. For example, only about 2% of people in the US meet the RDA for potassium, which is a crazy statistic. On top of that, there are specific compounds that are metabolized into alkaline byproducts in the body, usually into bicarbonate. These can even include acids like citric acid from citrus fruits, which most people think are acid forming, but are actually alkaline forming when they're metabolized in your body. With this list in front of us, we can then categorize foods into different categories. This is a very rough overview of their acid-alkaline properties based on what nutrients from the list they have most of. For strong alkaline foods, we have most vegetables and fruits. For mildly alkaline or neutral foods, we have some legumes and nuts. Mildly acidic are whole grains, most nuts and legumes, and strongly acidic are meat, dairy, processed foods, and sugar, at least in the mouth. When you look at this list, you will realize that most people overeat on processed foods, sugar, and meat, while not balancing it with alkaline foods like vegetables and fruit. So if we exclude processed foods, you will see that the problem is not the foods themselves. Meat is an incredibly nutrient-rich food with great benefits when eaten in the right amounts. So the problem is not that most people eat meat, but that they undereat on vegetables, which then leads to a lack of alkaline reserve minerals to balance the acids in the meat. What that means is that an alkaline diet is built mostly around eating more vegetables. They will help you replenish what you're probably deficient in. Fixing your mineral deficiencies is much more important in the long term than just increasing bicarbonate, because these alkaline reserve minerals can be stored in bones and tissue, which creates a reserve that your body can draw from. Bicarbonate, on the other hand, even though it is important for moment-to-moment pH balance, cannot be stored to the same extent. Instead, it's constantly being made and used up. So when you increase your mineral buffer, you're creating a reserve tank that your body can use when acid levels rise. If your diet lacks these minerals, your body will start pulling them from the bones or muscles or whatever tissue is available at that moment to maintain pH levels, which over time will weaken your tissue, organ performance, and could potentially lead to chronic imbalances. So what I want you to understand is that while bicarbonate handles immediate buffering, it's the mineral reserves that determine how well your body copes with ongoing acid stress. To put this into practical terms, here's an overview of what a good diet would look like. The foundation should be a variety of vegetables, especially cooked leafy greens, root vegetables, and cruciferous types like broccoli or cauliflower. These provide the bulk of your alkaline minerals and are easy to digest when they're cooked. Add in some fresh fruit for natural organic acids, which, like I said before, can often be metabolized into alkaline bicarbonate, and they also are high in antioxidants. You should also include a moderate amount of animal proteins like quality meat, fish, eggs, and even dairy if you tolerate it. Whole grains, nuts, and seeds can definitely also be part of the plan, but should ideally be soaked or sprouted to improve mineral availability. Obviously, limit or avoid ultra-processed foods and other junk. Some of it is okay, we want to be realistic here, but never make it the main part of your diet. As you can see, this kind of diet is very different from the typical alkaline diets that you will find online, the ones that tell you to cut out all acidic foods completely. These extreme diets often label entire food groups like grains, legumes, dairy, or maybe even all animal proteins as bad simply because they're acid forming. But like I said before, the issue is not the food itself, but the nutrient pattern that we see in many modern diets because it's low in quality foods and high in acid forming junk. If all you do is try to eliminate every single acid forming food, then you will probably run into other nutrient deficiencies and other symptoms down the road. Now, for special cases, for example, when you eat a high protein diet because you want to build muscle, so let's say that you're targeting 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, which is definitely a high protein diet, please understand that this will push your nutrient intake into more of an acidic territory. So you need more minerals to balance it out. Because many athletes are already borderline deficient, tracking your mineral levels and filling the rest of your diet with quality vegetables will be even more important in such a case. Great, let's now talk about the last part of this video, supplements. The average multivitamin is pretty much useless for this purpose because most are poorly formulated, don't contain a lot of minerals, and don't focus on the nutrients that you actually need to support your pH balance. Basically, what you want to achieve with supplementation is to focus on hard to get minerals. Let's start with the big four that we already talked about. Magnesium is probably the most important supplement here. Most people are deficient, especially if they eat a lot of processed carbs, lead a high-stress lifestyle, or are very active. Normal serum blood tests usually don't catch this very well, which I talk about in a different video. In terms of supplements, a normal range would be 200 to 500 milligrams per day, but I would start on the low end and then see how you do. Next is potassium. The big part of your potassium intake should be covered by all the vegetables that you will be eating. But even then, it can sometimes make sense to supplement. The problem is that the FDA limits supplements to under 100 milligram per dose, which is why you will see so many products with 99 milligram capsules or tablets. The reason is that ingesting too much potassium at once can create serious health problems such as heart arrhythmia. But this usually only happens if you have an existing kidney condition that keeps the kidneys from eliminating the excess potassium, or if you take in a lot more than the recommended supplemental dose all at once. In general, if you decide to supplement, start with a small daily dose of 100 to 300 milligrams of potassium and then work your way up to see how your body responds. I wouldn't go over 1,000 milligrams per day just from supplements, and always make sure to take it in several doses throughout the day, so not just one big dose, so your body can filter out any excess. Third is sodium. The best sodium source is a quality salt. Assuming you don't have blood pressure issues, you can take up to 5 grams of salt per day, half of which will be sodium. Just add it to your vegetables when you eat them. And lastly, we have calcium. This is a tricky subject because most people have too much calcium in the wrong places, like the arteries, and not enough in the right places, like their teeth and bones. So please watch my video on calcium supplements before taking high doses. Besides these 4 nutrients, you should probably also support your adrenal function. Why? Because your adrenal glands regulate sodium and potassium retention. So if your adrenals are sluggish, your body cannot hold on to these key minerals even if you supplement them. I talk about adrenal support in a different video, so make sure to check that one out as well if you're interested. And that's pretty much it. I know it was a long video, but as you now know, the topic is much more nuanced than many people make it seem. Both the people who say alkaline acid balance is a scam and the people who say you only need to eat alkaline foods and should take bicarbonate. Please don't get caught up in the internet fads or overcomplicated protocols. Much of this comes down to fixing the basics. So getting your minerals in, eating more cooked vegetables, and improving your overall diet. Also remember that health isn't about being perfectly alkaline. It's about giving your body the tools to maintain its own balance naturally. Also, don't forget to check out the video description for more free resources and my programs. They will help you if you're looking for step-by-step systems on topics such as diet planning, detox, and chronic fatigue recovery, and to avoid the most common beginner mistakes that I see people making all the time. For more info, just open the description. It will all be listed there.